At 54, I felt a pulse of life I hadn't known in decades. There was always something about Malik Thompson that stirred a restless ache deep inside me. Perhaps it was the way he moved, the quiet confidence in his stride, or the deep timbre of his voice that could shake a room without raising it. His hands, large and capable, seemed as though they could build worlds, yet gentle enough to cradle the heart of a woman long starved for tenderness. For years, I buried that longing beneath polite smiles, Sunday dinners, and the illusion of perfection. I played my role flawlessly, the devoted wife, the attentive neighbor, the woman everyone assumed had everything. But beneath the surface, a fire flickered, one I didn't dare name, not even to myself. My husband Daniel was solid, dependable, the kind of man who believed in work, saving, and keeping a neat lawn like clockwork. Our life in Texas was picture perfect: neat streets, cheerful neighbors, potlucks at the church hall. Yet, lying beside Daniel at night, I often felt more ghost than wife. And then Malik moved in across the street, into the long empty Miller house. The first afternoon I saw him, shirtless under the unforgiving Texas sun, washing his truck, something inside me shifted. A dormant part of me cracked open, gasping for air. Right then, I sensed my life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet imagine. If you've ever felt a hidden fire, an ache you thought buried, you'll understand the pull I felt that day. The heat was heavy, almost suffocating, yet it drew me toward the porch as if fate itself insisted. There he stood, glistening with sweat, muscles flexing with every deliberate movement, a vision of power and restraint. I lingered longer than reason would allow, telling myself it was mere neighborly curiosity. But my heart thudded against my ribs, betraying me entirely. I descended the steps, crossing the strip of grass separating our homes. "Hi there," I called, my voice trembling despite my attempt at casual warmth. He looked up, and for a suspended heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between his dark eyes and mine. "Well, hello," he said, wiping his hands on a rag, offering a slow, dangerous smile. "You must be my neighbor." His voice, deep and smooth, vibrated in the heavy air. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, suddenly aware of how my sundress clung to damp skin. "Victoria Hayes," I said, extending my hand. He took it, large and warm, holding just a fraction longer than necessary. "Malik Thompson," he replied, the weight of my name on his tongue sending an unexpected thrill through me. For a moment, we simply stood there, communicating volumes without words. I should have stepped back. I should have hurried inside and locked the door, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled and stayed. After that first encounter, it seemed the universe conspired to keep our paths crossing. There he was, whether tending his truck, watering the patchy lawn, or bending under the heat, every movement drawing my gaze like a magnet. I found excuses to be outside, watering my hydrangeas, checking the mailbox, walking my old Labrador. Even in oppressive heat, I risked each encounter just to see him. Sometimes it was a simple nod, a lingering glance, a brush of fingers passing a newspaper. Other times, it was the way his hands steadied me when we almost collided on the driveway, his touch searing through thin fabric, sending my pulse racing. I mumbled a barely audible excuse and retreated inside, my heart hammering, knees weak. That night, lying beside Daniel, I still felt the phantom heat of Malik's hands, heard the echo of his voice, and for the first time in decades, a smile crept across my lips. The next afternoon, with Daniel gone to work, I ventured outside again. Malik stood by his truck, water dripping over taut shoulders, the golden light glinting on his skin. "Need a hand with that?" I called, voice catching, a thrill of recklessness rising within me. He glanced up, a slow smile curving his lips. "You offering?" he asked, tossing the sponge aside and walking toward me, water clinging to him like a second skin. My breath hitched, and despite knowing it was dangerous, magnetic, I nodded, and just like that, I crossed the threshold of inevitability, stepping into a world I had long denied myself. Our eyes locked, the air between us thick with unspoken promise, a quiet tension that hummed like electricity. His presence alone pulled me closer, and I realized with a jolt, everything I thought I knew about my life was about to unravel. A part of me warned me to stop, to retreat, but desire, long denied, whispered insistently. And in that suspended moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were a careful dance between desire and caution. Every time I saw Malik, My pulse raced like a secret drum only he could hear. The heat of the Texas sun could not compete with the fire he ignited inside me. I found myself inventing excuses to be outside, watering the garden even though it was already soaked, or walking my old Labrador around the block, timing my steps to catch a glimpse of him bending over his truck, shirt clinging to sweat. Every movement, deliberate and intoxicating. It wasn't just attraction anymore, it was a magnetism that pulled me in despite my better judgment. Sometimes a glance was enough to make my knees weak. Other times, a brush of hands as he handed me a dropped newspaper left me trembling, heart hammering like a drumbeat of anticipation. Each encounter was a mixture of thrill and terror, a delicious imbalance that reminded me I was alive. And the more I denied it, the stronger the pull became, until one day, I realized restraint was no longer an option. I found myself standing at his doorstep under the pretense of borrowing sugar, my fingers twisting the hem of my sundress, a tremor betraying the excitement I tried to mask. Malik's eyes darkened as he opened the door, his gaze taking in every subtle curve, every shiver of nervous anticipation. "I've been waiting for you," he murmured, and the words slipped into my skin like silk. My breath caught, and despite every voice in my mind screaming caution, I stepped inside. The air between us thickened immediately, charged with unspoken promises. Malik closed the door behind me, the click resonating like the signal of something irreversible. "You've been teasing me for days," he said, stepping closer, hands grazing the curve of my waist as if they belonged there by destiny rather than design. I couldn't deny the truth. I leaned into him, letting the tension coil and snap between us. Every kiss, every touch, was a reclamation of years I had buried under routine and duty. We moved together like two forces long denied. His hands mapped out forgotten contours, lingering over the parts of me that had been left untouched, unappreciated, invisible. My fingers dug into his back as he lifted me effortlessly, pressing me against the wall. Time blurred, reality fading into a haze of heat and sensation. Every gasp, every sigh, stripped away the layers of loneliness I had built around my heart, exposing me to a raw vulnerability I hadn't felt in decades. After that first encounter, I realized life had split into two halves, before Malik and after. Every stolen moment became a delicious risk. In the shadowed corner of his living room, under half-closed blinds, in my kitchen, with hands tracing the contours of my body over cold marble, every encounter left us breathless, trembling, craving more. There was no hesitation, no shyness, only the raw, unyielding need to exist fully in each other's presence. Yet, alongside the heat and longing, a subtle thrill of secrecy wrapped around us. Daniel remained unaware, the perfect husband untouched by the storm raging across the street. Each time I passed him in the kitchen or stood beside him in the living room, I carried a secret fire within me, a pulse of life that Daniel could never reach. And that knowledge only fanned the flames of desire between Malik and me, making every glance, every brush of skin, more dangerous and intoxicating. The tension escalated further one late afternoon when Malik's lips found mine in the hallway, pressing insistently against mine, a kiss that left me reeling. "Tell me you don't want this," he whispered against my ear. I couldn't. I leaned into him fully, letting the years of hunger and denial vanish into the press of his body. Each caress felt sacred, like a rediscovery of parts of myself I had thought lost forever. By the time the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting shadows across the Texas streets, I was entirely consumed. My heart raced not just with passion, but with the thrill of what we were doing, the knowledge that this fire had been hidden for far too long. Malik had awakened a part of me, I thought dormant, and I wasn't willing to let it fade. But just as the night deepened, a whisper of doubt crept in. What if someone discovered us? What if the illusion of safety shattered? My stomach twisted at the thought, yet another thrill surged because danger, secrecy, and desire had intertwined in ways I could never have predicted. And somewhere in the quiet of my racing thoughts, I realized the moment I had been waiting for, the one that would change everything, was only just beginning. The next weeks blurred into a fevered rhythm of passion and secrecy. Malik and I were reckless, surrendering to every stolen moment with abandon. Mornings, afternoons, evenings, it didn't matter. Every touch, every kiss, was a reclamation of life I had long denied myself. The thrill of our hidden connection pulsed like electricity beneath my skin. And yet, beneath the heat and longing, a whisper of caution reminded me that danger always lurked, just out of sight.